Hello everyone, welcome to Impulsive Artistry. I'm artist Charles Wolf. Let's get started. This is another landscape in my continuing concept art series. We're going to start today by using an angle brush, grabbing some of the Mars Black, and mixing that with a good deal of water. I'm going to block out the basic composition by putting in the horizon line, some clouds up at the top, and this primary hill right here in the front. Just blocking it in quickly with some diagonal strokes for the front hill, a horizontal line for the horizon line, and some squiggly lines kind of horizontally, kind of slightly at a diagonal, opposite direction of the main hill on the clouds. Here's my palette. Primary blue, raw umber, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, titanium white, and Mars black. I'm using this black mixture. Lots of water in that paint, by the way. Want it to be kind of runny. We don't want it to be too thick. It's just an underlayer, an underpainting. Needs to be there to darken the canvas, but don't go too heavy with it just yet. Using an angle brush, like I said, it's very similar to a flat brush, but someone has diagonally cut off some of the bristles to form a point on one edge. It lets you do some detail work quickly, some nice cutting lines. It's a pretty small brush, and it works pretty effective on this size canvas. If you're working on a big canvas, then use a bigger brush. Smaller canvases, I recommend using a smaller brush. Adding a bit more water now. Primary blue, Mars black, and a bit of the water, like I said. It's a nice blue, kind of a darker blue color. Becomes a little bit darker as I layer it over the black I just put on, which is fine. And doing lots of quick brush strokes in a downward fashion. Pulling downward each stroke, touch of the blue, and a bit more of the white. Just lighten it up on the bottom edge here. Some dark stormy clouds on the right, and then let's go kind of dramatic here. Grab some red with some blue in the white, still using that dirty angle brush. We'll make some purple, and we'll put a touch more red in there. Takes me a second to get this right. It's kind of coming out kind of gray, the white and the black. Sort of push it more into the grays, and I want it to be a little more vibrant, so I add more red, and I eventually get it to how I want it to be. I've been enjoying doing these concept-y pieces, concept art pieces. They're very dramatic, high contrast, very dark darks, very light lights. Typically the light sources in the painting, so like sunrises, sunsets, typical to what I like to paint anyhow, but this is really pushing that contrast, more dramatic colors, really going for the primaries in this one, blues, reds, lots of reds in this painting, more than I normally do in my paintings. Really just pushing the contrast and the saturation, making it extremely epic, fantasy-like, dramatic as possible. You can see there that the purple is quite muted, and I'm wanting it to be more red, so grab a lot of the red there. That's better, and put that in. Touch more of the white now, a little bit lighter, that's too light, more of the red, bring that back in. Acrylic painting is so forgiving, you can just make changes as you go along, and this is no exception. Saw that I didn't like how it was looking, so you know what, grab some more paint, paint right over it, no big deal. Acrylic paint tends to dry darker, so don't worry if it looks a little bit light now, it will darken up as we go. The raw umber now, kind of mixing a little bit of the red in there, but mostly it's just pure umber, pulling left to right. Grabbing my round brush, this is light orange mix, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, that makes the orange, and a touch of the white to lighten it up. This is going to be the actual sun rising below the storm clouds above. Going to use a lot of white right at the horizon line, right above it, where the sun is just peeking over. And that round brush lets me blend things easily. Lots of paint on the brush. A little bit of water will help it to blend and run smoothly off of the brush. I've been using more water lately in my acrylic paintings as a sort of flow medium. It does thin the paint out a little bit when you add the water in, and it'll make it more transparent as well. So just be aware of that fact, but I do like the way that you can more easily layer over more layers of paint with the water, and it blends things together and reactivates areas. Like here, added a bit of the water so that some of the blue would blend into the yellow, just a touch. Focusing on horizontal strokes because I want this to be blended, and if I keep my strokes all the same direction, it'll become smoother. Here's some more of the yellow, blending up into the clouds. Important that you push the lighter color over the darker color to kind of set it into place. Typically looks better than if you go the other way. And very quickly, we already are having a nice perspective. You can see the distance, you can see midground, and then you can see the big foreground hill in the front here. And that composition is coming together nicely. I'm just sort of exciting the top of this mountain by lifting upwards and blending lightly into the yellow. That immediately makes it lighter and looks like the sun is hitting it. We'll come back in with more of the brown as we go along here. And then I also lifted up some of the yellow and made it a little more dramatic, made the brushwork more active, just to add some excitement to that sky. More of the umber, touch of the white in there, trying to get this more square. In my head, I am making these similar to some of the plateaus you see in Arizona or New Mexico, and that's what I'm going for today with this piece. Sort of this barren wasteland. I'm calling it Wildlands. It's very much like sort of a post-apocalyptic maybe, some deserty plains. Could be a fantasy setting, a sci-fi setting. That's one of the things about concept art that's great, is that you can push it more fantasy, more sci-fi, however you want. And it lets you be a little more fantastical as well. You can create things that you normally wouldn't paint in a typical landscape, pushing things a little bit more and be a little less realistic, which is fun and creative, I think. Bringing in a little bit of that orange mix on top of these distant cliffs. I want them to be pushed back into space, and the best way to do that is to simply lighten them up. In concept art, one of the key concepts is to have things get darker the closer they are to you, because the light source is in the back. Things close to the light source will be lighter, and things closer to you will be darker. That just makes sense. Sort of like the silhouette of trees, you know, when you're looking out at a sunset. Think about how dark the trees look against the sunset. Same concept as that. More of the white. I'm using it to fix that top line of the background cliffs. And we'll straighten this up down here as well. And put a little lighter yellow there, kind of moving up into the blue. Just adding a little more excitement and bridging the gap between them. And here I'm blending. Just softening these distant hills. A little more of the white as well. Okay, back to the cadmium yellow. Bring that in a little bit stronger here. Really making this hazy transition to where the ground starts and where the sky begins. Back to my umber. Sort of lost these cliffs a little bit, and I want them to be a little more present, a little more visible. Adding a touch of the blue just to make it a little darker and more contrasting. And while the umber and that blue mixes on my brush, I'm just going to blend out here into that white that's already there on the canvas and start to lay in the transition between the distant cliffs and the closer hill, using that umber. A little bit lighter than those cliffs because more of the light is hitting it. Just trying to find my horizon line again over here. And a touch more of the blue. Not too much though. Here's some salmon mix. Kind of a salmon color, cadmium red, cadmium yellow, and then white. It's similar to making orange, except that you've added more of the red this time than the yellow. And then you add more white, so it lightens it up. Almost like a pink, but you've pushed it more into the orange with the yellow. Like I said, it's similar to light orange, just a touch different. Whatever you do in the foreground, it's a good idea to mirror that a little bit. So put a little tiny streaks of this orangey salmon color in the sky as well. Just a few faint touches just to bring the whole composition better together. Now I'm going to be honest, we're nearly almost finished even now, just with the underlayer of the darker stone cliff face, and then fill in the areas where the white is showing through, and we could call this painting basically done. It is structurally sound, all the elements that we need are there, and we could call it good just here. I do go on and add some trees and add some other elements, and in the end I think it's worth the extra effort. But if you wanted to keep things simple, just adding a little more yellow here and there, and just adjusting a few more things, you could call this piece basically done. I'm only 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in here, and we're already looking good. So that's pretty exciting that the piece can come together very quickly. If you don't have a lot of time to paint, or you want to keep things simple, you can stop here and it would look great, and it would be a finished composition and a finished painting. I'm going to take it a little bit further for those of you who want to go a little farther with this. One of the things that I found was it was tricky to get this foreground hill detailed enough, but then also fitting with the style. I feel like the background is pretty blended and smooth, so having a little more detail in the front is good. I started putting in some of the white highlights here, thinking that would help, and it was okay. It didn't work as effectively as I wanted. It was a little too high contrast, and while that's okay for the style, I didn't like the effect as much. So I didn't end up going with this approach entirely. As you will see, this painting changes a few times here in the foreground as I work out this problem of what to do here in the front. I say problem, I'm going to call it more like a challenge, really. Just how to make this look interesting. I thought this kind of cliff face thing was cool, and I do like it. I just feel like I went a little overboard with the white there. It doesn't look really realistic or natural. I think if the underpainting was more of a brown, and then I layered over some like light brown, it would have looked a lot more effective. Because it's white and black, it's just too stark to be convincing. But that's part of painting. You have to try stuff and look at it and be like, nope, that didn't work. Keep trying, keep adjusting as you go. I'm just softening with some of the black, darkening back again. White and then some yellow. Just trying to blend this together, take off a lot of that color, and then use the water to help smooth things out. Sharpening the edge of that cliff in the front. And a touch of the salmon there just to soften it over. And that's looking better already. I like the sharp lines, they look good. Back to my black. I'm still sort of figuring it out, kind of working through the process, to be honest. It takes me a bit to figure this one out. Decided I wanted a darker, closer hill here, and I think that works. It helps sort of make the whole cliff more three-dimensional. It was very flat, and then by adding a darker patch on the left, you sort of bend it around a little bit more, have something facing the viewer that is not facing the sunrise, and so you get more of an angle here, and it helps make it look a little more like it's deeper as well, more depth. Start to bring in some of that salmon orange mix, touch of the white as well. This is starting to move in a better direction, I think. But when I hit on the tree idea, that's when it really comes together. More of that salmon mix. Painting is a super fun process. I have to say that if you haven't tried it before, please grab some brushes, get some paint, get a canvas, and start painting. Just some basic cheap paints is fine to start. If you're a beginner, get some basic synthetic brushes like I'm using here. Some cheap ones, you can get a pack for like 10 bucks and use them. They work. I use them in every painting that I do. I use them because I want you to see that you can use any brush. It's not about getting fancy brushes, it's about just painting. And with practice, you can make some incredible pieces of art. And you don't need to be super fancy or super expensive. Painting doesn't have to be cost prohibitive, and so I want you to jump into it. It's a lot of fun. Just grab some canvas boards. They're like 10 bucks for a pack of 7. You can get some brushes for 10 bucks, buy some paints that you need, some just basic acrylic ones for anywhere from $5 to $10 a tube. You only need 5 colors to start: white, black, red, yellow, and blue. I recommend cadmium red, cadmium yellow, and cobalt blue. I recommend Mars black and titanium white. I have dozens of paintings that use just those colors and those colors alone. If you want to expand your palette a little bit, grab some raw umber and you're basically good to go at that point. Other colors are great and fun, but you can do a lot of the mixing yourself. I'll put a link in the description of a paint mixing video. It's quite popular. Check that out as well for beginners. Show you how to mix a lot of the colors, the basic ones you need to know, a few extras, so check that out. Again, just jump right in, get to painting, it's a lot of fun. Here I'm doing a cool trick. I'm taking yellow and black, and that makes green. That's kind of cool. Not everyone knows that, but yeah, you can mix black and yellow and make a really nice color of green. It's a dark, kind of olive green, very dark, because we want this to be contrasting with the background, and it's going to stand out a lot. I really like the addition of this lighter green color. This really works for the piece, and I think it works for the composition as a whole. Now, I'll be honest, I went a little overboard in this next part, putting in the green kind of everywhere, and I was going for like bushes on the background. And if I had been light-handed with it and went a little less extreme, it probably would have worked better. I went a little heavy-handed. I don't know what I was thinking. Just got a little bit excited. It's like, oh, this is good. Oh, a little more. And suddenly it's like everywhere, and it's like, well, that doesn't actually look good. So if you just put in the 2 pine trees on the left, it's fine. Maybe dot a few smaller sections here and there in the background, but don't get so heavy-handed like I'm doing here. I made a mistake. It happens. I'm going to fix it though, and I'll show you how you can too. I thought this looks great. I'll add more and do a little bit more with my fan brush. It'll be great. And it was okay. It's just not as polished as I want it to be. And I think the biggest problem was that I started to obfuscate that line where the cliff starts and where the mid-range hills are, and I couldn't tell what was background, what was foreground. If you go overboard with a color, too much green, it's okay. Acrylic paint is forgiving, and you can fix it. Here's how. Grab some of the red and the yellow, touch of the umber in there. Brown is never a bad idea. And we'll just start to redefine where is this front edge of the cliff, and we're going to blend out that green. The addition of the green is not bad. It's just too much of it, I think, for the style that I'm going for. Kind of a dusty, dirty desert thing. You can always grab some paper towel like I'm doing here and just pull off the excess, and that will help you reassess and readjust things. Clean your brush off like I just did, and then grab some more of that salmon mix, red, yellow, umber, and a little bit of the white. Angle brush again. And with that salmon mix, we'll go back in with this red and just fill in the areas where we need it. Like I said, some of the green is still there. That's not a bad thing, just not so much of it. Okay, adding some more umber just to make it a little darker. I want some shadow from those distant cliffs kind of extending over it a little bit, and some darker salmon color with more of the umber will help form that and subtly suggest it. Bringing in some of this darker color onto the cliff itself. Again, wiping off some of the excess paint that I don't need back into my black, and we'll just again darken this foreground hill, this cliff here, and redefine the whole thing. So if you make a big mistake like I just did, not a big deal. You can fix it. Totally fine and easy to do. If you ever find yourself getting frustrated with the painting, it's not going as well as you would like, or it's not coming together as well as you wanted, just take a break, walk away for 15-20 minutes like I did, and I thought about it, and then I came back, and you can't tell that because I edited it together. Take a break, get some water, relax for a minute, and then come back and you can fix it. Sometimes I'll let painting sit a day or two if I have to, not working the way I want. Did that yesterday, in fact. I did a painting of a oceanscape. Put about 3 hours into it. It was a bigger painting, and I didn't like it, so I just left it overnight. Came back in the morning when I was fresh, and with fresh eyes, I was able to tackle it and fix a lot of the small inconsistencies that I didn't like, and it turned out really nice. Back to the salmon mix and some of the black, kind of interchanging the two. Nearly done with the painting, in the final stretch now. A little bit of the white and the umber. Just a few lighter highlights over here. Okay, back to my dark green mix. A little bit darker this time. Make this tree a little larger as well. Really pushing those hills back, and by making it larger, that happens. Those back cliffs should be very far back there. And there is the final piece. Thank you so much for watching. Hope that you enjoyed this painting lesson. And I'll be back soon with more painting videos for you all. Thanks!